Hello, my name is Megan. Some of you know that. And I'm going to go over quickly how my autism was diagnosed. First of all, I always knew, even from very, very young childhood, like toddler time, I sensed that there was something very different about me. In particular, communication. Especially expressing emotions and feelings and interpreting them in other people. I spent much of my childhood with a very blank look on my face, looking at the floor, avoiding eye contact. I was delayed in speech. I still sometimes have periods of selective mutism, especially in social situations. It's like my throat is constricting and the words can't come out. Anyway, when I was old enough and learned about autism, I knew that's what I had. But when I brought it up to any medical professional, I was told that it wasn't possible because I had a job, because I could speak by then anyway. I was gaslit. And so at 53 I was diagnosed finally, even though it wasn't a big revelation. I knew it was there. I just wanted my current health providers to see that professionals in this field affirmed what I had been knowing and saying. Mine was done this way. First, it was a telehealth thing. The people, it was very professional. The people that did the assessment were PhDs in neuropsychology, I think, and specializing in diagnosing adults with autism. First, they sent me so many different questionnaires and different than the things you just find online. I already filled those out and knew exactly where I was going to score anyway, but no, these were different. I had a lot of those and I sent those to them, and then there was a date arranged and it was a Zoom call, and the first part was an interview. I think the whole thing took 4 hours, a little over 4 hours. The first part was an interview type assessment, and it feels on one level that you're just talking to somebody, but I know on a higher level they're taking note and everything. They also sent forms to my mother as someone who knew me well as a child and knows me well now, that the things from childhood are still here at 53. And they got a lot of information from her, and I don't know and didn't ask what she told them. she did mention the fact that, well, the teachers just kept telling me that you were really, really quiet and really, really shy and overly sensitive. School was hard. And so the interview, and then after that, I'm talking on my laptop, but my phone was hooked up to Zoom as well. And they sent me a tripod along with some paperwork, and the phone was aimed to the paperwork, and she could see me filling in the paper and take captures of it. And they compiled all that information, and within a week, a little over a week, I had a follow-up session on Zoom, and they confirmed that the autism is there, level 1. My deficits, I'm used to that word from my past, but what I'm not good at is just what I said, communicating emotions. I tend to have a blank face, and I get accused of being rude, or also because I'm bad chit-chat. I have to remind myself and force myself to do chit-chat. I think it's a waste of time. But I would be accused of being rude, bored, uninterested, when in fact I was having a good time. I was enjoying myself. I wasn't partying. I was never like that. But like going to a museum, really enjoying myself. But all the pictures are like of me with this blank face. And also, when I look at people's faces, I see eyes, I see a nose, I see lips, kind of separately, and it's like I can't put the puzzle together and come up with some clue as to what they're getting at, what they're feeling. Since I've been diagnosed, I allow myself to understand that if I'm about to get upset over how someone has behaved, I can remind myself that that's not my strength. So I may be, and probably am, misinterpreting. So I'm learning to just let it fly away and just let things take their course. And otherwise I would ruminate because I just didn't know. Anyway, so this is, and then they sent me a secured email where I had to have a password to see it, because it's, HIPAA and stuff. And I do also have bipolar disorder, and I don't think it's one or the other. I do think they both exist within me, because autism, as far as I know, doesn't cause delusions of grandeur and things like that. And when I take lithium, those things go away. So my brother had AD, when they called it ADD, and my mom's brother had ADD, among some other behavioral developmental issues. So this is, I got this is my assessment, and I can't make sense of a lot of it, because, but anyway, their impressions and discussion were, I presented as an intelligent and kind adult, bipolar, overall cognitive abilities as measured by a standardized intellectual battery are in the average range in comparison to adults of the same age. Verbal comprehension and perceptual reasoning are within the high average range. Working memory, because they also tested me for ADD. Working memory was measured within the low average range, while processing speed was measured within the borderline range. The neuropsychological protocol as a whole highlights low average adaptive functioning, some attention deficits, challenges in processing speed, and autism spectrum disorder. And the processing speed comes to play when people are talking to me. It like takes a while for what they said and for me to respond. And people often get impatient with me. But, sorry. Because they can ask me a question or try to get information from me, and it takes me a while to spit out the answer. And I would have trouble in school because of that. I mean, I did well in school, but it was hard. Let's see. It says, let's see. Scores in this range indicate deficiencies in reciprocal social behavior, which is what I just expressed to you. Displaying emotion and understanding emotion. Social behavior that are clinically significant and lead to severe and enduring interference with everyday social interactions. I've lived with my mom for a very long time now and in the past, and I still only in her face see parts and can't put them together, and I don't know if when she's upset, it's just confusion. Such scores are strongly associated with clinical diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. Megan displayed a pattern of differences in her development consistent with a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder level 1 requires support. The degree to which her autism spectrum differences are currently affecting her ability to function is considered to be mild and are best understood as a brain style pattern of strengths and differences. Understanding her autism brain style, differences in the area of social communication and sensory use, and interests will help Megan better understand the perspective of others in her life and to develop adaptive routines that help her connect with them in ways that are more deeply satisfying and meaningful. Adaptive behaviors were measured in the below average range compared with same age peers. Adaptive functioning is the suite of skills essential for real-world, day-to-day functioning, includes daily living, communication, and socialization abilities. Even in the absence of co-occurring intellectual disability, difficulties in adaptive functioning are prominent in autism spectrum disorder. Furthermore, cognitively able. That means my my IQ, that part of me is fine. Cognitively able ASD individuals demonstrate a gap between IQ and adaptive functioning, which means, what I understand it to mean is that you can still have the intelligence, cognitive abilities, your intelligence is okay, but your ability to do those things is not. And then it goes into some things. My T-score of 69, I don't know what that means, but it was elevated as compared to the scores of her peers, suggesting significant perceived difficulty, meaning how I feel about it. Difficulty in one or more areas of executive functioning. Diagnosis: Autism Spectrum Disorder Level 1 without accompanying intellectual impairment, without accompanying language impairment. Bipolar disorder by history. Unspecified attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And so there's like a whole bunch more. My cognitive and behavioral symptoms: repeating oneself, asking the same questions or telling the same stories, misplacing items, difficulty multitasking, having a hard time making decisions, difficulty solving problems or troubleshooting, trouble judging distances between oneself and others' objects, difficulty in conveying emotions, preferring solitude over socializing, and struggling to form friendships, displaying intense interest in specific topics, low frustration tolerance, that's where the tantrums come in, compulsive or ritualistic behavior, repeating behaviors over and over, poor empathy, ability to understand, relate, and share in another person's emotional experience. And I'll show you an example of that. There was somebody I know that knew I had bipolar disorder, and her son was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and she wanted to talk to me a little bit to get to understand it a little better. And she was crying. Now, I saw her crying, and because I don't know how old I was then, it was several years ago, but I was old enough to, at that point, have figured out, because of what I had witnessed other people do, when somebody cries, you're supposed to console them. It doesn't come naturally. It was something I picked up, but I never did. I couldn't get myself to do it. I still didn't understand how they were feeling, but I understood that I see them crying, and that other people would have just instinctively consoled the person. And I think this was the first time I've ever done this, and haven't since. I actually, I offered a hug, and I gave her a hug, and it made her feel better. I still don't inside of me understand what it was that she was feeling. It was just that I saw that she was crying, and because of what I'd seen other people do in a similar situation, And so I did that because we were in a room, like, small room. It was like I couldn't get away, so I thought this was the fastest way I could get out of this situation. And it was very difficult. It was very uncomfortable for me. And like I said, I still don't understand exactly what she was feeling. I hope I'm describing that right. And let's see, onset as a baby. Yeah, it onsetted as a baby. I didn't cry. My mom would wake up and to silence, rush in my room like, what happened to my baby? And I'd just be awake looking. I walked around silently as a toddler, just scaring people to death because I was so quiet and I was so small that I would just be standing there with a blank face staring at people, and they turn around and see me and freak out. So it's always been there. And my mom confirmed that. And ADL, activities of daily living, assistance needed, grocery shopping and meal preparation, communication such as managing mail, emails, and phone calls. I think I know that information came from my mom. It's like when I go into a grocery store, I turn stupid. I don't know what it is. I don't even understand what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's very, very difficult. I have to have a list. I can follow a list and mark it off. But it's difficult being in the store itself because of the lighting. Makes the colors very bright. There's too much color. Too many colors, too much light. But and because I have trouble, like, I can make a meal that is like a one-step thing, because if I have more than one thing going and I have to judge time-wise, forget it. I will make one thing now, and then the next, and that'll be cold. And so then I'll just resort to sandwiches. Because a lot of times I get overwhelmed with directions and instructions. And I'm so much better with phone calls. I hate them because I don't know what's going on the other end. But there was a time where I would make my mom, as an adult, make minor phone calls, order a pizza. So, let's see if there's anything else of importance and interesting here. I did have some trouble with basic math, but I got over that. I already told you about the history. Oh, my voice being too quiet for others to hear has been my whole life. Asked to repeat myself, stop mumbling. When I talk loud enough for people to hear, it sounds like yelling to me. I'm not very good on the phone. I text better. I get the information better. I get it best when it's on paper. I print out my emails if there's too much going on, so I can, like, put it in list form, and highlight things. For some reason that helps. Let's see, when I had a friend, my first friend in school, and I relied on her. She was like, I described it as I was a ship in the fog, and she was the lighthouse. As long as I could see her, I felt safe. And we were like this, but she was the leader. I followed, and she moved away, and it broke my heart. And I was bullied throughout my childhood, school years. So I was getting bullied on the playground. I didn't have any friends, so I'd just stand by this wall and cry. And I was so overwhelmed, I started asking to stay inside for recess. And I remember this woman coming and telling me, talking to me about how I could go about making friends, what I should do, what could I say to make friends. It was very, very awful. I went out on that playground, mustered everything I had, and tapped this girl on the back and said, "Will you be my friend?" And she said, "No." And so I was crushed. I mean, I was sobbing. I was crushed. So that didn't work, and I was mad at that lady for telling me to do it. And at some point, this other girl came to the school, and she was kind of a misfit looking, and I don't know, I guess somehow we were both misfits. We became friends. There was this day where the math thing, when I got frustrated with the math division, I threw my books up in the air. I would have outbursts, and then they got worse when my friend moved, and then I got this new friend, and one day we had indoor recess, and she wanted to play this game with these other kids and not me, and she was like, "We can still be friends, we're still going to be friends, but I can do stuff with other kids too." And so I tended to be very, very clingy, but I was so overwhelmed seeing her play with the other kids that I went over and took the game pieces and just swiped them off the board and fly all over. I was sobbing and yelling, and it was insane, but I just couldn't control myself. Let's see. I also, one of the reasons the kids picked on me was because I had this problem. I don't know what started it, but I ran underneath. I was frustrated, and I ran underneath a table that was at the front of the class, and I wouldn't come out. And when the kids were coming up to get their work checked, they were barking at, they weren't barking at me. They were telling me I looked like a dog in the doghouse. Oh, dog in the doghouse. So I started barking at them when they walked by. And so the teacher finally was like, "I'm going to send a no home to your parents if you don't get back to your seat." So I went back to my seat. But I mean, it was all came from frustration and not being able to understand what was going on with people and emotions, and understanding how things work, and fear of losing friends, and difficulty, how hard it was to get a friend, But then again, there were, in my younger days, I tended to play on the outskirts of the kids, and sometimes the neighborhood kids would come over, and I would opt to, no, I don't want to play. I am washing my rock collection, and I would also smash rocks with a hammer for all by myself, being very pleased doing that. Smashing rocks, washing rocks, organizing rocks. So, there was that. And let's see, what else is there in here? Poor eye contact. I go to the pool twice a week, and I spin in the water, and I probably look like a complete nut. It's an indoor warm pool, and in the bubbles I jump in, and I can see all the bubbles, and I can feel them on my skin, and it's like a sensory craving, and it's stimming as well. And I come out of there for, I do it for 30, 45 minutes of that stuff in the pool, and I come out feeling calm and stress-free for a little bit. Once a year, I go to a festival, the Renaissance Festival, and I dress up in a costume, and for that time, I am not me. I'm somebody else, and it's really nice to be somebody else, and it's nice to be around this huge number of people that are also dressed up and into it, and I don't stand out. So, and I go alone because I don't have friends. I don't mind doing things alone. That doesn't bother me. I would be more uptight and anxious if I had someone with me, actually. One of my hobbies is, well, I take pictures, but I don't take pictures of people. And this is something that someone recently pointed out to me. I take pictures, like I visited somebody's house for the first time, and I took pictures of the rooms and the house and the statues outside, and not the people. And that's typical. I go around my neighborhood and take pictures of buildings that have shapes, particularly rectangles and squares, like windows, and the more run down the better. And I put music to them and slideshows, and they're on my TikToks. And let's see, how would you describe childhood? Lonely and difficult. Bullying and emotional abuse from childhood indoors, which my mom. And then they have this, and then they just talk about all the tests, this long list of tests that they did, and the rest of the pages are just the results of those tests. There's pages that look like this, where it'll say high average, below average, severe. My severe, extremely low social, extremely low social domain, I have no idea. I have no idea what those tests were for. I think they were the ADHD tests. let's see, emotional control, self-monitor, shift, behavior regulation. That was elevated, which is bad. Okay, so it gets down to social cognition, severe, social communication, severe, social motivation, severe, restricted interests and repetitive behaviors, severe. So, total test score results of that one test was severe. So this basically told me everything I already knew. So I just wasted 35 minutes of your time if you actually meant to watch all of this. On the upside, one of my special interests is the band Sleater-Kinney, and I am wearing Sleater-Kinney t-shirt that I got at the concert, which I went to alone. And another thing for anybody who's watched my videos before, my hair. I didn't get a perm or anything. I'm letting it grow out, and when it dries naturally, it gets curly, and I don't think anybody's ever seen it that way. So it's that's just how it is naturally. Not necessarily naturally. What happened was, a long time ago, in my 30s, I was on Depakote, and it made some of my hair fall out. And when it grew back in, it was curly. My hair had been straight. So, that's it. That's a lot. Bye. Good night.